In this gripping analysis, we unravel new developments in the JonBenet Ramsey case. This new key piece of DNA evidence may just be the one that solves this 27-year-old case. Now that new genealogical DNA has been collected, what breakthroughs could this lead to?
Key piece of evidence, and you call it strange, but there's a lot more to it.
Everyone to the table. Here's my theory of what happened to JonBenet and my explanation for why unmatched DNA doesn't clear suspects from an earlier video in the series. In case you're not familiar, my theory about this case is that Burke either accidentally or intentionally killed JonBenet, and then John and Patsy staged the kidnapping and garroting to cover it up and protect their son. So
Right. So did you hear that? This is what he's thinking, and I've thought that many times before.
Theory about this case is that Burke either accidentally or intentionally killed JonBenet, and then John and Patsy staged the kidnapping and garroting to cover it up and protect their son. So the question I often get is, well, DD, if Burke killed JonBenet, how do you explain the unidentified DNA? The issue here is that the question is based on a fallacy, that whoever left that DNA must be the killer. But that's not necessarily true.
And see, we addressed that, Jacqueline. We addressed it. You see, we're going to do all sides today. We're not just pointing the finger, and I'm not pointing the finger at John. I'm just looking at the evidence and making statements about it, making assumptions. John already knows that his family's DNA is not in the underwear. Law enforcement back then even went to a Chinese underwear factory to get DNA. Well, we don't know exactly what. They told us that they're taking it from the DNA from the panties, but that could just be a tactic, Jacqueline. That could be a tactic for someone to think, oh, well, exactly what you were thinking about. Just because that matches doesn't mean he took her life. All right, Jay, I really hope it gets justice for JonBenet. Remember this happening. I had little ones at the time. So sad. Bless her. I agree with you. And thank you for being here. Indy Isham, thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. Guys, we got a goal, and I appreciate it. All right.
The Ramseys were at a Christmas party that night, and that trace DNA could have come from anyone who'd ever been in that house. The Ramseys' own home was bustling with staff, police, and visitors the very morning JonBenet's body was found.
And see, I want to know, like KT, the geeky geek, I want to know what you think. If you think the Burke theory is ridiculous, tell me what you think. Everything's on the table at this point. We're not focused on one thing in today's topic. We're looking at everything. So what do you got? Tell me about that. Holly, thank you so much for the $1.99 super sticker. Choo choo. Let's go.
Even the supposed evidence that JonBenet was alive when the garrote was applied doesn't rule out Burke clinically killing her with blunt force trauma and the parents biologically killing her with the garrote during the cover-up without ever even knowing. My main point is, if all the evidence is pertinent and it all neatly leads to a single evil mastermind, right before credits roll, you're watching a TV show. Real life is chaotic, full of trade-offs, opportunism, mistakes, stupidity, and randomness. I'll link that video on the end card so you can watch it next, but hopefully you see why I don't like being lectured about the DNA evidence when it doesn't match anyone. That doesn't clear the Ramseys or anyone else on the planet. All right, let's keep watching, because that's not the only shell game John Ramsey and his PR team are playing.
And again, guys, I understand the whole, he's pushing it. He goes to CrimeCon and he talks about it, but it doesn't mean it's not somebody that was still close to the family, that was essaying her. And even if they match it from the sexual assault from the panties, it doesn't mean it's that person. All right. So let's keep going. We don't know exactly what DNA they actually said the panties, but they also said they took evidence that they've already tested. They've retested, and they clearly said there's also new evidence that's never been tested. So we'll try to make assumptions based on the evidence we're given.
John joins me now live. Let's start with the new evidence and the retesting of old evidence. Have they told you anything about that?
Well, Chief Redfern told us, gosh, I don't know, September, we had a meeting with him, and that he had submitted evidence for additional DNA testing. We, of course, have advocated that if certain evidence that was taken from the crime scene has never been sampled, that it ought to be. The main one being the garrote that was used to strangle my daughter. So it's encouraging. And
So he just said that again. I know someone came in here earlier and wanted me to replay that. That's what he just said. All right. I don't know about a life insurance policy. I didn't even know. I'll take a look at it. And yeah, he did offer to pay out of the pocket for testing. He's offered quite a bit. He's been very forthcoming. All right. Let's keep going. Dale, thank you so much. I didn't even know you were here. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for the $5 super sticker. All right. I will take a look and see if they talk about a life insurance policy.
The key really in progress has been the addition of new leadership there. It was not very good for 25, 26 years. And brought in Chief Red from the outside. I've met with him 3 or 4 times. I'm impressed with him. I think he's sincere and honest. And
all right, so just quickly, and again, we're not bashing any one person. You guys asked about the life insurance for JonBenet, although I don't think that has anything to do with it. The open sources and the official case summaries focus on the ransom note of $118,000 matching John Ramsey's bonus and other financial angles, but there's no list or verified insurance amount on JonBenet Ramsey, right? There's speculation, etc., but I haven't even heard about that. And I still wouldn't think that would be, I don't think that would be a motive, just in my opinion, but who knows? All right. Who's victim blaming this little girl? No one's victim blaming. I'm just saying that's what we're not doing. All right. You say it's not semen, folks. It's superficial touch DNA. And if you have an article, I'd love to see that.
So I'm encouraged. And, we've advocated.
I can't believe, John, I can't believe that the chiefs in the past haven't seen it as a priority, if only to become, famous in name as the chief that solved this case. It just defies logic that it's taken 3 decades for someone to come along who maybe does make this priority and who has the chops. I'm going to tell you something. When I saw the posting of Chief Redfern, I went deep down in the comments and I was reading the comments. And John, I'm not going to lie, I was so disheartened to see how many people out there still believe you had something to do with it, despite the fact, and let me repeat this loud and clear, that the Boulder police and everybody else involved in investigating the murder of your daughter, they have cleared you over and over and over again.
And there you go. There she's saying it again. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're saying. That's what we're talking about. All bets are on the table at this point, even though you just heard at the beginning, again, a law enforcement or an expert pointing at John with all the knowledge he has of the case. Why even go there? All right. And I did look up the DNA evidence. They are not giving us, I am not finding one thing that tells us, oh, it's touch DNA, or it literally only talks about fresh DNA and then stuff they've already tested. So DNA was known from JonBenet's underwear, from under her fingernails. That's the same core DNA evidence, guys, that helped, they say, to clear the Ramsey family in 2008. All right. So the recent updates on calls are to retest that existing DNA and possibly additional items like the ransom note, the ligature, garrote, and the clothing, using more sensitive techniques and genetic genealogy similar to what was used in the Golden State case, guys. John Ramsey has been very forthcoming and working with the DNA experts. They said the newer testing might be able to extract a clearer profile from the mixed or degraded samples. And then they're going to search the genealogy databases to identify relatives of the unknown male. But police have not announced that what the new profile is. Has it matched? Is there a suspect? All right. Public statements from Boulder and John Ramsey indicate that the discussions are ongoing. Additional testing is being done and the evidence continues to be collected, and that there's a little bit of new DNA evidence, but we don't know what. Describing new evidence and methods, but it doesn't say anything about touch DNA. So let's keep going.
And they've gone so far as to apologize for having left you under that umbrella of suspicion for so long, to the point where Patsy died before she was cleared from that umbrella of suspicion. So for anybody watching, if you're one of the commenters, do your research. before you make such painful comments about John and his family.
As I've pointed out many times in my JonBenet Ramsey videos, the Ramseys are opportunists. In other words, they answer questions in the way that suits them most in the moment, which is why we found so many contradictions in their interviews. Case in point, Banfield used the police's apology to John for even suspecting him of being a suspect as a way to lecture us for questioning his story. But just a minute prior, they were talking about how incompetent that police department was. So which is it? Are they incompetent? In which case, who cares what they apologize for? Or are they competent? In which case, they might have been onto something when they were suspecting John and Patsy. As you can see, it makes no sense, and that's because it's basically the liar's equivalent of cognitive dissonance. But besides being opportunists, they're also manipulative, and even Banfield seems to be jumping in on the emotionality. Is it sad that Patsy passed away while under the suspicion of murdering her daughter? Yeah, I think it is, because I don't think she murdered JonBenet. I think she and John both, out of a deep sense of love for their son, covered up the murder because I think the son did it. So while I personally think it's a tragedy all around, that doesn't excuse lying, and definitely doesn't excuse them lecturing or gaslighting people out there who.
And again, they said they cleared the entire Ramsey family, which is interesting. Why they're coming at this angle with a new DNA, all right? And again, we're just talking about who it could be. That there's a huge possibility that it was somebody that knew John from the family, that knew the layout of the house, that knew what his bonus was. Absolutely. And guys, Deception Detectives here, he says, "Hi guys, thank you, sir. We appreciate your commentary and, well, you. So thank you." Yeah, I know they're not cleared by you. You've got some very strong opinions, and I love it. I love when people can say what they think, how they feel, and with the evidence. You're not just, you're not trying to gaslight anybody. That's how you feel.
Can plainly see the obvious. But the biggest insult in this entire interview is coming up next.
Okay, that aside, I will say this because you brought it up when we, I think, spoke at CrimeCon, that you wish that they would ask you to re-interview. You wish that they would bring you in so that you could, once again, tell them everything that they might want to know. Is that, I know you got the meeting in January. Is that on the agenda?